you, first of all, for taking the time to apply, and even more for being willing to serve as president of the National Association of Bar Executives. I think we're lucky to have your interest, and I really look forward to hearing what thoughts you want to share with us today. So I am going to go first to Josh and see if Josh has any questions or thoughts he wants to share.
Thanks. Man, my first thought was Joycelyn. How did you have such a meteoric rise, to the top? I feel like I just met you 3 years ago or so. No, I think, and I do mean that in some seriousness, because it's always been a joy, I'll say personally, to get to know you and all the TBA, with the exception of Barry. No, but I mean, really, it's been fun. I see y'all as true peer counterparts, and maybe more so with NABE, with the like-minded vision of how you can really get engagement in the association space with so many folks on staff to get good resourcing to move our organization forward and to support our own jobs and where we are and what we do. So I guess my thought is just in general, where do you see us going? Like what's the vision for how we can grow as an association, and how we can resource all of our members, both from that individual or also bar institutional standpoint.
Sure. Well, I've been fortunate this year to participate on several small groups, which has been great for me, being as a bar executive, but also just being a member of NABE, seeing what other people are going through, what their needs are, how we are meeting some of those needs, and how in some ways we're not. And so it's interesting being a part of the strategy work group, hearing from people talking about live events, versus not having them, and some of the roundtables that we've done. So I think for me, the lesson that I've learned from the TBA is meeting members where they are and trying to figure out what their actual needs are versus what we think they might need, or this larger plan that we always have that we want to do. What is actually resonating with people, and are there gaps in those? And so for me, this past year has been very interesting because we learned through some of our virtual work, the people that we're not reaching, the people that don't come to live events, but that still have engaged with us in some form or fashion. And so I think the same for NABE. There are, and we've talked about this, there are pockets of people and roles that could be more involved. And I know there have been other strategic plans and other strategy work group sessions and other recommendations related to those. How do you bridge that gap with those people, the people in YLD, or the people who might only do IT work, or the people like I have some HR people or an HR person? How do you engage those people in a way, or provide content for them in a way that they feel like it's a value, and that we still are moving the organization forward? So I think a lot of the foundation of that's already being set with some of the work that's been done this year. I always view my role anytime I've been president of anything as not trying to reinvent the wheel, but trying to figure out how do I keep things on track and move us forward in whatever direction we've set, in the previous few years. And so I know that our board for the past few years have already thought about the future. And what I'd like to do if I were to get this role is to take that and run with it, and figure out and listen to people and figure out, does the plan still work? One thing that we're doing is we did a strategic plan about a year and a half ago, but then, COVID hit. And so it's like, well, does that plan still work? Does it still make sense in light of what's going on? So we went back and looked at it again and revisited it and revised it. So I think you can't be afraid to do that either. So I'm not necessarily wedded to the plan that always was, but I think it's always good to have a plan, but to be open to changing if necessary to see where members' needs are. And so we do a good job of surveying. The roundtables have been great, and I've learned a lot from people from that, for my own bar association, on things that we can do better.
Dennis?
Thank you.
Joycelyn, I guess my question would be is, if you have an opportunity to serve on the board, and if you could get just one thing done, when you think about all the things you could get done, what would that one thing be that you would like to contribute?
Well, I think for technology is a big part of my world now. I'm thinking about it. And so I think for me, whether it's TBA or NABE, looking at how we can be innovative and using technology to move our members forward, whether that's through our website, whether that's through some other types of means, because I think one of the things that I'm hearing from people is, like, after we get through this period of time, we're still going to need to figure out how technology plays a role in how we manage our bar associations. And so if I could figure out a way, either through a partnership or through some type of endeavor, to make NABE sort of the technology, the I guess, a force in technology related to association work and somehow build revenue on that, that would be a great accomplishment if I could do that.
That would be, thank you very much.
Liz?
I'm not sure that I have any other questions. I like your approach and the revisiting of the strategic plan. I think that is, there was just so much work into it, and I thought that they did a really great job with the strategic plan. So I don't know that I have any specific questions. I just thank you for your interest. I've always enjoyed getting to work and talk with you at the in-person meeting. So it's great to see you on Zoom.
You too.
Barry, do you have anything you want to share? Which is a little awkward, I know,
No
but
pressure at all.
I gotta ask.
happen to have
I
just
gotta
like
ask.
pages and pages of questions.
He's
here
waiting
for
on this
Joycelyn.
all week. Come on, Barry, just bring it on.
I've been working on it really hard. Now she's kept me too busy so that I haven't had time to prepare. That's her strategy. She's very sneaky.
Holy moly.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Just like I said earlier, I've enjoyed working with Joyce in the last few years, and she really is someone who gets things done and is great to work with. And I think our members and our staff both would share that same feeling.
Awesome. Well, Joycelyn, my questions would be more about how you would view your role in bringing people to the NABE board. We have this really hybrid system for board leadership where you have to have served on the board in order to move up into the president's role. But there are only so many of us, and particularly so many of us that have interest, time, and experience. And so, in this role, you would be working closely with Ellen and with Kevin over the next 3 years. But what would you do in order to bring up those behind you?
Well, that's a very good question, and something I think we all deal with and struggle with in all of our associations, is how you build the network of people to be in position to be able to take advantage of the opportunity to be on the board. And particularly from a diversity standpoint, I'm dealing with that now with our boards, trying to figure out how do you find people and put them in position so that in the next 5 or whatever years, they're ready to be there. I think for me, as if I were to get the position of vice president, I would want to, if it's within the purview of my position, to figure out how to make some outreach, and whether that's something formal or use of some of our current things that we already do, which is some of the roundtables. I know, for example, one of the things that we're talking about now is a lot of our members are very big ABA people, but we don't have a lot of people in Tennessee trying to sort of follow behind them. And so there's maybe a 20-year gap between some of where the people are. And so we're starting now to think through, okay, well, can we have some information sessions or roundtables or things that are specific to different jurisdictions, different parts of Tennessee, just for East, just for Middle, just for West. And so I wonder if there's something that we could do with NABE, whether it's small or medium-sized or larger bar associations, and have people from leadership, have sort of open sessions to talk about the benefits of it and what you're getting from it, and use our existing committee chairs and others as ambassadors. I mean, a lot of it is people know people. It's just being charged with going out and doing something and giving a list of, here are the 3 things that we need you to do. And so I'm happy to be a part of that, thinking process and figuring out what are those 3 or 4 things that I can give to the committee chairs who we're looking to sort of populate with new people to go out and find other people to be a part of it. I think we sometimes, and I know I'm guilty of this, the people around us, we sort of like, oh, they're good, they'll do it. But there are a lot of people who are good who just don't know, what they can do unless you ask them. And so I think, being creative like that is something that I would be more than happy to do.
Well, and then in addition to our own pipeline, we also have relationships within NABE and other organizations. So I'm curious about how you view the NABE relationship with NCBP.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. When I first joined the board, being in my role, we have members that are very active in NCBP, very active in ABA, and then I know TBA has been very active in NABE. And so my first conference, I thought, oh, this is great. So synergy, we're all kind of working together. And then I know that I was on that task force that you were part of this year, where we heard from different people from NABE who thought, I don't really care about doing that. I don't really care about having 2 meetings a year, or the fact that NCBP, the programming at NCBP sometimes the same programming we just had in NABE, 2 days prior. And that's an issue, when we have busy schedules and are trying to do what we need to do. So I think I know that we're in the process now of looking at our relationship and figuring out how do we, continue to keep that connection, because it's important and because there's going to be some overlap with our officers being a part of these organizations. But those organizations are not always necessarily giving us what we need as bar executives. And so I think it's an important relationship. It's interesting for me because of so many people in my bar who are so very heavy NCPP. And so I try to navigate to be there for my president. I think figuring out a way to help bar executives have those conversations about, their own budgeting, about whether I can travel. You certainly can go to NCPP, but NABE's not doing that. I think if we can help people have those conversations or give them the leverage that they can have to, navigate their professional settings will be very important. So I guess to answer your question, long way around, I think it's important, but I think we have an obligation to our members to give them what they need. And so there's a way to do that, I think, in a world where we don't necessarily have to be dependent on NCPP, have a respectful coexistence with them. But as we're looking at our conferences moving forward and separating and not doing mid-year, I mean, it's just a different, we're just, we're moving in some different paths. So I think it's a delicate situation, but virtual has given us some great opportunities there that we didn't, maybe not thought about a few years ago, but maybe we can use that as a bridge building way. But, I was very interested. It was interesting for me to hear so many people who did not necessarily want to rely upon the multiple live meetings and who did not necessarily feel as important to have that connection with NCPP. So I think it really depends on your bar, what state you're in, those sorts of things. And we have to be mindful that not everybody's in the same boat and everybody can't go to the same places. So how do we meet the needs of everybody under those circumstances?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So let's say that you're going to be the next NABE president. What would you want the members to know?
I would want members to know that I am I have been, bar associations run through my blood. I am all for, the reason that I left my job practicing law is because I knew that this was a great opportunity to do everything I've always wanted to do, which is be a part of the practice of law, but affect it in a meaningful way outside of billing hours, but to also look at things globally with law students, with mentoring, with legislation, all the things that affect the practice of law, I get to be involved in now. And now at the NABE level, it's something that I'm very passionate about. So it's something that's been my leadership development as a lawyer, started in bar associations, and being the skill sets to run a meeting, to lead a team, all the things that I didn't get in my practice, I've received through bar association work. So for me, it's a passion for me, and it's something that I love to do, and it's something that I enjoy. So for me, I would want people to know that I take it seriously. That's a part of who I am, and it's an extension of what I've always enjoyed about the work that I've done, and so I would certainly bring that to the NABE board as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time.
Sure.
And it's been great to serve on the board with you. You're one of the people I'll miss next year. So I wish you the best.
Your leadership as well. And this has been a challenging year, but honestly, NABE has really been a big part of my development and survival as a bar executive. So I'm happy just to be a part of this process. So thank you all very much.